A new Ted prequel series dropped on Peacock about a week ago, so I spent the week watching through the show as well as the 2 Ted films. So today I'm going to stop and rank all 3 Ted projects from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your ranking of the 3 Ted projects, and in particular, what did you think about the new TV show? Give that context. Are you a fan of Ted? Are you a fan of Seth MacFarlane? All of that fun stuff. Point of reference for me, I've actually only ever watched 2 episodes of Family Guy. I saw the original Ted, I don't know, 10 years ago, whenever it first came out. I think I saw it a couple times. Watched the first season of The Orville, but I'm not as familiar with Seth MacFarlane's work as many other people are, so take that as you will. One final thing before we get started. February 1st through the 4th, I will be at Megacon hosting panels, doing meet and greets. I've got a bunch of my YouTube friends joining me for that. If you are anywhere in Florida, actually anywhere on planet Earth or in the multiverse, you want to come out to Megacon for one of these panels, for one of the meet and greets, the details are all down below in the description with what panels we're doing, what times, and who will be on each of the panels. I would love to see you there, and let's get started. In last place, Ted 2, and this one was pretty easily in last place. Now, in this film, I think Seth MacFarlane still knows how to write and deliver a joke, so there's any number of laugh out loud bits in this film that delivered all the fun that you would want from a Ted 2. But on a story level, I think it was just entirely ill-conceived and lost a lot of the heart of the original film. The focus shifted in a very strange direction, and it just felt like it was way too plot-heavy in a very strange direction. And in particular, because it becomes about, the movie's all about a civil rights case, about proving Ted's humanity and that he's a person. And so it's just like going very much in this direction that's touching on big philosophical ideas, touching on ideas that with America's history are very charged, but it's neither using them to make very edgy jokes or to make some sort of statement. It's just going in an odd direction that's dealing with the law and court hearings and civil rights stuff. And you're like, are we doing a Ted movie? What's kind of going on? What are we doing here? And like along those same lines, I didn't realize Mila Kunis wasn't in the film until literally I started watching it last night and she wasn't in the credits. And I was like, wait, what's going on here? And then the starting point of the film is undoing the big happy ending of the previous film. And I thought that was just like a really, just like an off-putting direction to take things because it undoes the whole arc of the first film. And so I started like reading the Wikipedia page and the quotes of everything, why this kind of happened. I assumed it was because Mila Kunis didn't want to do the film. And it wasn't that at all. It was because they chose to go in this direction about a court hearing. They needed the female lead to be a lawyer, and Mila Kunis's character wasn't a lawyer. So the movie kicks off with a divorce. I just thought that was so peculiar, off-putting, unpleasant, and not funny. And puts just kind of like this, it's like putting a wet blanket on top of the entire film. But at the same time, it starts off with a wedding for Ted and the girl at the grocery store, and they want to have a kid. It just felt so off, so miscalculated, so misreading the room, which is frustrating because, as we started, it still has plenty of laugh out loud moments. Didn't feel as fresh. There was a number of points in time where it felt like we're doing the same joke, the same Sam Jones joke, the same pot joke, like we're going to the same well a few too many times and copies a couple too many plot points. And it just didn't feel right. Felt off. So still laughed, still enjoyable enough if you want a Seth MacFarlane raunchy comedy, but on a story level, I didn't think it worked at all. In second place, Ted the series, and then I'd say there's a pretty big gap between Ted 2 and Ted the series, where this was actually a pretty pleasant surprise, where the last Ted movie came out 9 years ago, and they're like, we're going to do a Ted TV series. It felt like, what are we Why? Ted in the year 2024? Okay, whatever this is, we'll see how this goes. And I wasn't really going to cover it until I had several different people message me saying, hey, it's actually pretty good. It's actually quite heartfelt. It hits a lot of the right notes. So I was like, maybe I will check this out. And that's has led us to making this video that I actually hadn't been planning on making until just a day ago. And I think what the show does really well is it copies the style of a sitcom in a lot of ways. It plays like a sitcom, but with Seth MacFarlane, raunchy Ted humor. So it has this kind of almost earnest, it's a strange context for this, but a certain wholesomeness to the nature of the family where they actually care about each other. They want the best for each other. And a lot of the episodes like end with a life lesson, like we're watching Full House. Like it does that sort of thing. Someone grows, changes, and discovers something about themselves throughout the course of an episode, while at the same time delivering drug use, raunchy jokes, politically incorrect humor, pushing boundaries, being edgy. Like it goes for it, but also has a sweet side to it at the same time. And I just thought that was interesting. And it very much feels like a piece of the Ted universe while kind of fitting into a very different genre at the same time, which it should, which is all that to say that they found a really good way to adapt it to television and find something to do. Even setting it in the past, I think, opened up these opportunities for Seth MacFarlane humor that's poking fun at the time. It's pushing boundaries. But like I said, kind of feeling throwback in this other sense. It's a real interesting combination of the way all of that worked. And as I, got an episode in, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. The thing that also stuck out to me is like, probably shouldn't be surprised that Seth MacFarlane project would be funny and he would know how to do television. He's been doing television for 25 years now and has written funny things before, and he's returning to the project. He's the director, one of the writers, show creator. Okay, maybe we shouldn't have been surprised that this turned out as well as it did. I think there are some problems here. The episode lengths are wildly uneven in a way that doesn't entirely work. The first episode's like 50 minutes long, but it's doing like a sitcom deal. So a 50-minute sitcom episode is a lot. And then the next one is a more reasonable length. So there's some odd choices in the lengths of the episode. And especially when there's only 7 episodes, you go, why didn't you just cut that in half? Cut that one in half, take a couple of the other ones and maybe cut them in half. And we end up having like a 10, 11, 12 episode season that feels a little bit more reasonable than 7 episodes, which is a very strange length for a show like this. Other one, the cousin character in the show, there's a lot of things about her that I think worked well as kind of being a voice of reason in kind of this crazy scenario, but she's written as if she's from the 2020s. She's like a college student from the 2020s, just imposed back into the early 90s. And of course, she's supposed to be the highly liberal, progressive niece that's staying at the house with the rabid Republican, Clintons are destroying the world, dad in the family. And so you're trying to contrast those two and they butt heads, but they still love each other. Get what they're going for. But she doesn't talk like a liberal from the early 90s. She talks like someone from today. The way certain things kind of play out, it feels out of place with the time. And I don't know if that was because they were just trying to make a statement, if that was the network heads or whatever being like, you can't have this dad saying the same things that he's saying without counterbalancing. I don't know what it was, but the language, her perspective on things is very 21st century, not early 90s, and where the dialogue was at in all of the issues being tackled. And it does get preachy in the last third of the season. It gets times where it pauses to like make the statement. And once again, I don't know if that was the network heads being like, okay, we'll let you push boundaries to make your jokes, but you have got to also soften it, communicate some ideas here. But it was like pauses to make statements essentially to the audience. You're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. This is very heavy-handed for a show that is so crass, so lowbrow. But overall, I like Seth MacFarlane is witty, he's clever, and you get that here. But he also can be honest and sincere in his treatment of people's relationships to each other, where they honestly do care about each other in this wild, over-the-top scenario. So, I don't know. It's like a very odd mix of teenage drug use, sex jokes, and wholesomeness in this very strange other sense. But coming in at number 1, the original Ted. And it just feels like it was the right movie at the right time with the right cast. Seth MacFarlane had been doing television for over 10 years, had an idea for a movie, he wrote it with some people, he directed it, and then of course he is the Ted character, and he's partnered up with Mark Wahlberg, who can play a very good, charming man-child. He plays a very endearing, believable person that hasn't quite grown up. And so you have all the strengths of the television show, of the way that it has the raunchy humor, a wit to it, pushing boundaries, but at the same time has a certain sweetness to it of like how much characters care about each other. At the core of it, it's this tension in its own odd sense, a love triangle of senses, but not in the traditional sense, because obviously it's not a romantic love with Ted, but you have a friend that you can't live without, that means everything to you, you mean everything to him, but also holds you back. And so trying to figure out, how does that relationship look, grow, and change with time as you try and mature and become actual grown-ups. I just found that right balance to where you're rooting for all of it. You just want them to figure it out, what that should look like. And that's where I think it just kind of works better than maybe it should. That it can... Comedy's supposed to push boundaries, and Seth MacFarlane is someone that has always liked to push boundaries. Go for it. Anyone's a target, and we're going to make the uncomfortable joke. And you have all of that, the edginess, the crassness. But once again, a certain wholesomeness about people that really care about each other, about friendship, about love, and it merges them together. And in the case of the movies, where the TV show goes very sitcom-y, the movies kind of are able to kind of escalate to higher level, more sensational stuff, car chases, kidnaps, rescues, all of that fun stuff kind of tying into it. And so for me, I think being that they get the best jokes all crammed into under 2 hours with someone like Mark Wahlberg in your lead, some of the more kind of outlandish things that they could do with a movie budget, like the riffs on Airplane and some other movies that they throw in there, being able to do this gigantic Sam Jones bit in the film, it can go for it in a way that's tougher to do on a television budget. So it has the biggest laughs while still having that heart, and of course a great co-lead with Ted in Mark Wahlberg, so it comes in at number 1. Remember, if you're in Florida, in the United States, or anywhere on Earth or the multiverse, you want to come out to Megacon. That's February 1st through the 4th. We have panels all 4 days, meet and greets all 4 days. Information is down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.